A school has begun just about for most of the kids in Houston and the Houston area. And so it's an exciting time. It's a time of transition, but it's also a time where, kids are making new friends, and we know social media, and we understand the power of social media these days. Talk to us, though, about that dangerous side of social media where, there are people who are willing and trying to take advantage of our kids. And it can happen so easily through social media these days, but also other areas as well. But we're going to first talk about social media. What are some of the biggest dangers? What are some of the biggest threats that are out there right now for our kids?
Yes, that's a great question, and it's this the world we live in right now. So the main things are like cyberbullying. So you got these kids that have been out for summer and they haven't been around their friends. They may be keeping in touch, but now that they're back in school, you got kids that may be trying to pick on other kids. And back when we were growing up, if you dealt with a bully, you only had to deal with them for the 8 hours of the day that you were at school. Well, now it's 24 hours a day, unfortunately. Even when they leave home, they're constantly being bullied and harassed online. So that's something that is very important that parents and teachers pay attention to, because it can be detrimental to, a kid's safety. Harsh language, they'll, get in a group with other kids and just really attack one kid, and bully them to the point where, it may be too much for them to bear.
Right. We also know that there are predators out there who are trying to get children involved in sex trafficking. There are adults that are reaching out to kids for inappropriate relationships. What are some of the biggest signs that parents should watch out for in that realm?
Yeah, so parental controls are very important, right? So it lets you know how, what websites, what applications that your kids are using, and how long that they're on them. Well, that's just one level of kind of seeing what's going on with your kids. Now, these predators, they know that about those parental controls. So they have tricky ways of going into different applications, like say a Roblox, and it's called like group grooming. And they'll get in there with other adults that are trying to take advantage of these kids, and they'll introduce them to inappropriate content, inappropriate sexual content, to try and groom them to think that that's the norm, right? And then once they get them used to it, then they'll start reaching out to them via chat, and then start, trying to build a relationship and a rapport with them. And then that's to try and translate to them, getting with them outside of the internet, outside of that application.
What are some signs that parents need to watch out for? Because we know kids are extremely smart, and they're much more savvy than most adults, certainly their parents, when it comes to online and, the cyber world and apps. What are some things that parents can be looking out for in terms of behavior or, change in attitude that might give them some signs that, hey, something's not right here?
Yeah, just changes you're around your kids when you get home from work. It's a lot going on, but you got to pay attention to their mannerisms and their behavior and the kind of conversations that they're having. So if they're starting to talk about certain things that you may not have introduced them to yet, it may be time to spark up a conversation and then look into where are they learning this stuff from, as far as like sexual conversations. Because I've seen, unfortunately, I was looking at that the other day, where they'll have little characters on their performing sex acts to introduce them to that. And so if you haven't even had that conversation with your child, and then they're bringing up, different things that are kind of alluding to that act, that's a red flag. So you need to sit down with them, look into it. My kids know, anytime dad or mom wants to, I'm going through all of your stuff, whether it be your phone, your computer, or your tablet, just to make sure that there aren't any of those adults taking advantage of them and introducing them to the inappropriate topics.
And as we mentioned, kids are very, very smart. And just a few minutes ago, before we started, you were talking about Google Docs and how the kids know how to manipulate that. Talk about that.
That's more at the high school level, man. And it scared me when I found out about it. So, if me and you were working on a group project together, and we had kind of a working document, where we're Zooming and we can't be in the same place at the same time, but we need to look at this document and add to it, take away from it, and communicate via messaging. And it's not so much email, it's not so much text messaging, because your parents can see that, right? Well, you have this Google document that you can restrict other people's access to, and only you, if I was a kid and the other kids, and we're discussing stuff that we're not supposed to be discussing, let's meet up here at this time, they can have access to that Google document, and then everything in there can be deleted before a parent can see it.
Wow. And obviously, kids can work on that and use that together, but but an adult can introduce a child to that as well.
Yes, yes. So like things like WhatsApp, things that aren't going to pop up on your text message thread to show you how many times they've been in contact with these unknown numbers that you're not familiar with, right? So knowing is half the battle. If you know about things like Google Doc, if you know about things like WhatsApp, if you know about instant messenger on like social media sites and stuff like that, those are the things that you have to check on a regular basis and check the trash can and see what they've deleted to ensure that they're not trying to hide something from you. And have those conversations with them, you know, to let them know, hey, this is what it looks like when somebody's trying to get to know you and make it feel like they, you know, they're on your side, but really it's an adult that could possibly be setting you up to harm you in the future.
Yeah, what it sounds like is just parents need to find a way to communicate with their kids on a regular basis.
Yes, for sure. And I feel like technology helps us, but it can also harm us if we're not paying attention to how it's advancing, especially with like ChatGPT and all of the AI stuff that's coming as well. You just have to pay attention and kind of don't let it get too far away to where you don't know what your kids are being exposed to. And I think if you do that, that's half the battle. And if you have those conversations to them so they can identify when somebody may be trying to groom them or trying to persuade them to do something that they shouldn't be doing, and it's an adult and they're a child, then they'd be like, okay, that's what dad talked to me about. I don't think that's a kid. Let me tell my parents so that, you know, they can handle it.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, yeah, open communication. Okay, I think that was my last question for you. Other than, did you have anything else to add, and maybe just in general, how can the community come together to make sure our kids are protected?
For just with online.
Online, yeah, just in general, well, even the bullying as well. You know, if adults are noticing that this is happening, that maybe even their kids might be engaging in, you know, cyberbullying. You know, obviously, a lot of this stuff are things that, you know, need to take place inside of the home.
Yes, sir.
But just from a law enforcement perspective, what's some advice to pass along?
I think it's really no different than what we do as people working in law enforcement professionals. It's no different than anything that we do in our job today. You have to go through different scenarios in your head so that when you come across that situation, you'll know how to act. So the way that translates to the kids is you have to have these conversations with them, and you have to talk to them. Okay, like a stranger danger was all we had to worry about back in the day. Now strangers can get to them online, but you have to talk to them about what a stranger is in person and what a stranger is online. And, you know, some of the scenarios and tactics that they may use to try and trick them, right? And then when you think about a bad guy, what does a bad guy look like? What does a stranger look like? Explain to them a stranger is somebody that you don't know. They could be older, they could be younger, because sometimes they use kids that you do not know to get you and lure you to that adult that's trying to harm you. So you have to pay attention to some of those conversations that they may be introduced to so that they identify, okay, that's what's going on. And if you come across a grown-up in person and they're like, oh, I lost my puppy, can you help me find it? Well, if you haven't gone over that scenario with your kid, they're like, oh, okay, well, let me help you find your puppy. But if you, okay, my dad talked to me about that, that's what's going on. If you come across that person online and they're asking you this or asking you for more information, you've already had that conversation with your parents, so you know how to react to it. So I think really it's on us as parents, it's on us as teachers and educators to have these conversations and go through these situations and scenarios with the kids so that they don't freeze up or they don't succumb to the dangers of the online strangers and the people in person that may be trying to take advantage of them.
Okay, all right. Sergeant Lahar, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
it.